Now, as for my story, well, level 1, I really loved it. Level 2, there were good techniques, but I felt there was so much more. Level 3, I found it amazing. For me, I mean, you can see the techniques and how quick you can go really, and how much you can really help, especially with changing beliefs, because changing memories helps, but there are sometimes, so now we have a lot more tools. Now, my story was, I had nothing wrong with me. Everything was perfect in my life. And I don't know how many modalities. I mean, I grew up and I believed in healing, and I believed in the power of the mind, and I believed in there's life after life, you know, death, and I believed in all this stuff, and I was in a family who did. So it was a really interesting life. I mean, my mother got married to somebody she didn't love, was kind of forced in a marriage, really. And they moved to Africa, where I was conceived. My mother was sick. She was going to die when she was pregnant with me. She had malaria, so she had to move. In fact, the words that she told me were, the doctor told him I would either have to go in a coffin or no, so he had to send me back. And they divorced when I was born. So, so this is how the story starts for me. But when I went to school, I wasn't a child of a divorced parent. I was a child who had 2 fathers, so I'm so lucky. So they tried to put the positive in me, in whatever happened. And my mother remarried when I was nearly 1 year old to another man who wanted to move to Australia. I found out this year that I didn't know that she left me. Okay, she left me when I was a week old, 2 days, because she had moved to another town to not see my dad. And then I found out that when I was I don't know, about a year or something, they moved to Germany, 2 months. She left me with my grandmother. And then one of the big changes was when I was 4.5 years old, when we moved to Australia. So I lost my grandmother, who was very important to me. But I only realized the importance this year. And then the memory I really have is about being lost in Sydney with not knowing English, and thinking, how could somebody leave a child to go to school 5 years old without knowing the language? So that was kind of a, you know, proud of myself that I got home. I was okay, but it was like, how can somebody really do that? Then she told me it was I was on the bus, and there was a woman who told her, I'll take her. And then this year she told me, but it was a school bus. Okay, whatever, you know, it doesn't matter. And then that started with, I'm not good enough, I'm not important enough, because all the attention as a child was always on my brother. And I didn't have my father. I had my stepdad, who loved me, but all the attention was really on my brother. And I learned from that time to do everything by myself. And we moved 18 houses till I was the age of 18. We were going to Australia, the same towns, different schools, different everything. So I always had to cope on my own, and I always did. And even if I had problems, I would never say. I had friends who had gone through sexual trauma when I was at school. Australia, I had different things, you know, happening and around, and I felt really alone most of my life, you know. So when what happened was about 7 years ago, I fell and hit my back. But when I wrote the list down, I had broken 5 times, you know, different parts of my body. My hands and my toes and my shoulder, like 7 years ago. But the story was, when my daughter got engaged, then something happened. I kind of, this part moved and left, and I couldn't straighten up, and I had really bad pain. I couldn't move. And then I found Andreas, who was a FasterEFT practitioner, and he said, come and we'll try something. And from that day, I was able to move. And then I did another 1 or 2 sessions, and it was really life-changing. And even though I've done so many modalities, I don't even know how many, really, because I've never stopped studying from a very young child. What was really so what the point was that after that, the first time around, because I was always detached from everything, a lot of tears came out. I couldn't even speak the first time round. And the first time round wasn't really, the workshop, I had my daughter with me, the first time, which was level 1. And level 2 was about money issues, which there were other issues, so I was lucky that I was on the chair for both times. Now at this point, I don't cry. I can talk about anything intimate, I can talk about deep feelings. I don't have anything to cry about. I do feel sometimes a little bit of sensitivity, which means we're going much deeper, because a lot of this, I could never speak about emotional issues, never. I could never say something that hurt me. It was always painful. And if I would say something, I would cry. I mean, I would hide my face not to show, and I would say it. And I don't have any problem now, because whatever I feel, I just say it, and it's okay. And if they don't like it, it's not my problem. But, and I do it. Well, with astrology, the point was that I knew a lot of stuff, but I never wanted to reprogram them to have the bad stuff, because I knew that we can reprogram our minds from a very young child. So I knew that, but I didn't know that just by being detached, I still had all the issues until they all showed up. No money, divorce, no good relationships, really shitty relationships, you wouldn't say. I mean, the first one was schizophrenic and a drug addict. I mean, that's how I started off. Yeah, perfect. So yeah, it was great, and yeah. And then I had an alcoholic 7 years ago. That's when I had the back problem. So, great job. Because it was about, because it was all about my need for love. But anyway, the point is, you don't need to defrag me, I'm okay. I don't have any issues. But what I do remember and what struck me was one of the conversations, because I was always intuitive. So I told Robert at that first level, no, at the workshop in Cyprus, what happens if you can feel the other's emotions? Like, I can. And you know what he replied? You're an encyclopedia full of shit. That was a reply, and then it was like, what? Yeah, I was. But I'm not anymore. I'm cleaning it out. So that's what I want to say. Thank you.